step you made, etched along the silent white, never to fade. With warmth you carried through a brittle cold maze. Every trail you left behind a memory stays.
It was a quiet night, too quiet, the kind that always made the hairs on his neck stand up. He was stirring sugar into his coffee, thinking about the warm, bright lights of home, when the call came in. An old house, out on the edge of town, engulfed in flames. Not just any house, mind you, but the old Thorn place, standing empty and spooky for years. Folks whispered it was haunted. Ben just knew it was dangerous. He pulled on his gear, the familiar scent of smoke and canvas a comfort, and headed out into the blizzard. The siren wailed a mournful song as they raced through the white out, the red and blue lights painting fleeting streaks on the falling snow. He had a bad feeling, a gnawing in his gut that wasn't just the lukewarm coffee. This wasn't going to be a simple put-out-the-fire job. He could feel it in his bones, a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. When they arrived, the Thorn place was a roaring beast, its windows glowing like hellfire eyes in the deepening night. The old timbers, dry as tinder, crackled and groaned, sending sparks spiraling into the stormy sky. "Ben, front entrance is a no-go," yelled Captain Miller, his face grim. "Looks like the whole roof is about to go. We're gonna have to hit it hard from the outside first." But Ben, he felt that pull again, a whisper in the smoke. He saw a flicker, a movement in an upstairs window, quick as a ghost. Against his better judgment, against every rule in the book, he grabbed a rescue axe and a hose. "I think I saw someone," he shouted, his voice barely audible above the roar of the fire. Miller started to protest, but Ben was already moving, a shadow against the inferno. He knew it was crazy, knew he could be walking into his own grave, but that flicker, that feeling, it wouldn't let him go. He found a side door, half-rotted and spluttering with small flames, and kicked it open. Heat slammed into him like a physical blow, and the smoke clawed at his throat. He ducked inside, into the belly of the beast, searching for a phantom in the flames. The air inside was a suffocating blanket, thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning wood. Ben moved through the collapsing house, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom, revealing charred furniture and falling debris. He called out, "Hello! Anyone here?" But only the fire answered, its hungry roar growing louder with every step. He pushed deeper, driven by that nagging sense of urgency. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath his heavy boots, and he could feel the intense heat radiating through his gear. He knew he was taking a terrible risk, that this house could come down on top of him at any moment. But then he saw her. In a room surprisingly untouched by the worst of the flames, huddled in a corner, was a woman. Her clothes were simple, an old-fashioned dress, and her hair, long and dark, framed a face that looked impossibly serene amidst the chaos. Her eyes, wide and luminous, held a strange, ancient light. She didn't look scared, not one bit, which he rushed to her side, his heart pounding a rhythm against his ribs. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough with smoke. She just shook her head, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and seemed to glow with a faint warmth that cut through the biting cold of the winter night. He reached out to help her up, and as his gloved hand touched her arm, a strange sensation shot through him. It wasn't just the warmth. It was a feeling of something ancient, something timeless, passing between them. He felt a fleeting image of crackling hearth fires, of winter nights long past, of whispered secrets under a starlit sky. It was gone as quickly as it came, leaving him momentarily disoriented. He shook his head, blaming the smoke and the adrenaline. "We gotta go," he urged, gently pulling her to her feet. The house groaned again, a sound like a dying animal, and a section of the ceiling crashed down nearby. There was no time to question the strangeness of it all. He had to get her out. He half-carried, half-guided her back through the inferno, navigating the collapsing hallways and leaping over burning debris. The fire seemed to surge and recede around them, almost as if it were making way. He felt an unusual clarity, a heightened awareness of every creak and groan of the house, every gust of superheated air. And through it all, the woman remained calm, her hand surprisingly light in his, her presence a strange anchor in the swirling chaos. They finally burst out of a side door, into the biting cold and swirling snow, where the other firefighters were still battling the blaze. Captain Miller spotted them, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Ben, you crazy son of a gun. You found someone." He rushed over, ready to take the woman to safety. But as Ben turned to hand her over, she was gone. Just like that, vanished into the swirling white curtain of the blizzard. Ben stood there, dumbfounded, his heart still thrumming from the rescue, his mind reeling from her sudden disappearance. She was right here," he stammered, looking around frantically. Miller looked at him, then at the empty space beside him, a puzzled frown on his face. "Ben, you've been in there too long, son. There was no one with you." But Ben knew what he saw. He knew what he felt. He stared down at the fresh, undisturbed snow where she had been standing, and there they were. A trail of delicate footprints leading away from the burning house, straight into the heart of the blizzard. And here's the kicker, folks, the part that made Ben's blood run cold and then inexplicably warm. The footprints glowed faintly, each one radiating a soft, golden warmth that melted the surrounding snow, leaving dark, wet indentations in the otherwise pristine white. "No, Captain Miller," Ben thought, "I was not alone." He tried to follow the footprints, calling out into the storm, "Hello, where did you go?" But the wind snatched his words away, and the snow quickly began to erase her path. The glowing warmth faded after only a few steps, leaving just regular footprints that were rapidly disappearing under the fresh fall. He felt a profound sense of loss, a strange emptiness that had nothing to do with the freezing cold. It was as if a part of him had gone with her. The other firefighters, seeing him standing alone and bewildered in the snow, exchanged concerned glances. They thought he was suffering from smoke inhalation, maybe a touch of hypothermia. They gently led him away from the inferno, wrapped him in a thermal blanket, and checked him over. Ben let them, but his mind was far away, replaying the flicker in the window, the calm in her eyes, the ancient warmth of her touch, and those impossible, glowing footprints. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he hadn't imagined her. She was real, and she was a mystery that had just walked into his life, then out again, leaving nothing but questions and a lingering heat in the snow. Over the next few days, the memory of the woman from the fire gnawed at Ben like a persistent ember. He tried to tell his fellow firefighters, tried to explain the glowing footprints, but their eyes held pity, not belief. "You're just tired, Ben," they'd say. It was a rough one. Even Captain Miller, a man Ben respected deeply, just clapped him on the shoulder and suggested he take a few days off. But Ben couldn't rest. He kept replaying the scene in his mind. Every detail burned into his memory. Her calm eyes, her unusual dress, the faint, golden warmth she radiated. It wasn't a dream, wasn't a hallucination. He had felt her hand, seen her face. He even went back to the site of the fire, now a charred skeleton against the stark winter sky. He searched for any sign, any clue, but the snow had covered everything, leaving no trace of her impossible departure. Yet he knew she was real. He could still feel the warmth, a faint echo on his skin, a memory that refused to fade. He started visiting the local library, a small, dusty place filled with forgotten stories. He pored over old books, local histories, folklore, anything that might explain what he had experienced. He looked for tales of vanishing women, of strange lights, of impossible warmth in the snow. Most of what he found was fanciful old wives' tales that made no sense. But a few snippets, whispers in the forgotten texts, spoke of ancient spirits, of beings tied to the very essence of the land, sometimes appearing in times of great need or transition. He found references to a winter fae, a protector spirit that would sometimes manifest in human form to offer comfort or guidance, only to disappear as mysteriously as they arrived. The stories were vague, bordering on myth, but something in them resonated with Ben. He wasn't a superstitious man, Never had been. But what else could explain the unexplainable? His search became an obsession. He neglected his sleep, his appetite. His friends at the firehouse noticed, their concern growing. "Ben, you're not yourself," they'd say. "You need to let it go." But he couldn't. He felt a deep, undeniable connection to this vanishing woman, a pull that he couldn't ignore. One bitter afternoon, while digging through an old box of forgotten local newspapers at the library, he stumbled upon an article from nearly 100 years ago. It spoke of a young woman, Elara, who had lived in the Thorn House, known for her kindness and her strange, almost magical ability to bring comfort to those in despair. The article described her as having eyes that held an ancient light and a presence that radiated warmth, even in the coldest winter. She had vanished mysteriously one Christmas Eve, leaving behind only a trail of warm footprints in the snow after a devastating fire that had consumed her family's home. Ben's heart leaped. The house was described as a different one, but the circumstances, the name, Elara, the vanishing, the footprints, it was too similar to be a coincidence. He felt a chill, a shiver that wasn't from the cold, as the pieces began to click into place. He read the article again, his fingers tracing the faded ink. The Thorn family had rebuilt their home after the fire, but Elara was never seen again. Some whispered she had been taken by the Winter Queen, a mythical figure from local folklore who sought out pure souls to join her retinue. Others believed she had simply run away, unable to cope with the tragedy. But the details, the impossible warmth, the Christmas Eve vanishing, it was too specific, too resonant with his own experience. He felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. He was closer to the truth, he knew it, but the truth was far stranger than he could have ever imagined. He felt a connection to this long-lost Elara, a sense of shared destiny. He wondered if the woman he rescued was Elara, or perhaps a spirit, a manifestation of her lingering presence, returning to the house that had once been her home. Ben decided he needed to visit the charred remains of the Thorn House again, this time with a purpose. He walked through the snow-laden woods, the silence broken only by the crunch of his boots. The house stood stark against the gray sky, a skeletal reminder of the recent tragedy. He started at the side door where he'd entered, carefully retracing his steps inside. The air was still heavy with the scent of ash and decay, but beneath it, he thought he could detect a faint, sweet smell, like winter flowers. He found the room where he'd found her, now a crumbling shell open to the elements. He looked down at the charred floorboards, trying to imagine her sitting there, serene and untouched by the inferno. He closed his eyes, concentrating, trying to conjure the image of her face, her eyes. As he stood there, a strange tingling sensation began in his fingertips, spreading up his arms. The air around him grew strangely still, and the bitter cold seemed to recede, replaced by a subtle, almost imperceptible warmth. He opened his eyes. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt different. He felt a presence, a faint whisper against his consciousness. Not words, but a feeling of profound sadness, of a longing for something lost. He felt as if the very stones of the house were speaking to him, telling him a story that spanned generations. He knew instinctively that Elara, or whatever benevolent spirit she represented, was tied to this place, to this land. He reached out his hand, touching a charred beam, and in that instant, a vivid image flashed in his mind. Elara, young and radiant, standing in a vibrant, blooming garden where the Thorn House now stood, a smile on her face, a warm glow around her. The vision was fleeting, gone as quickly as it came, leaving Ben breathless. He knew then that the house was more than just a place. It was a memory, a vessel for a story that refused to be forgotten. He understood that the fire, while destructive, had also been a catalyst, a way for Elara's presence to manifest, to seek something. But what, and why now? The questions swirled in his mind, making his head ache. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, a powerful urge to understand, to uncover the full truth of Elara's story. He knew he couldn't just walk away. The mystery of the vanishing woman from the fire was no longer just a strange incident. It was a calling, a puzzle that only he, it seemed, could solve. He was drawn into her story, a silent promise forming in his heart to find out who she was and what she needed. He spent weeks meticulously researching the Thorne family, delving into old property records, genealogical charts, and dusty town archives. He discovered that the Thorne family had a long and storied history in the town, stretching back generations. They were known for their generosity, their quiet wisdom, and a peculiar connection to the natural world. Many family members were said to have green thumbs and an uncanny ability to soothe troubled spirits, both human and animal. But there was always a thread of melancholy running through their history, a sense of something unfinished, a recurring pattern of quiet disappearances or unexpected departures, particularly around Christmas. It was as if their family line was intertwined with some ancient, seasonal rhythm, a secret dance with the turning of the year. He learned that the Thorne property itself was once much larger, encompassing vast tracts of forest and even a small, spring-fed lake. It was a place revered by the indigenous tribes who had lived there before the settlers arrived, believed to be a sacred site, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. They spoke of guardian spirits of the winter, protectors of the frozen land, and the warmth weaver, a benevolent entity that brought solace during the harshest months. Ben felt a shiver of recognition. The glowing footprints, the sudden warmth, the serenity of the woman in the fire, it all fit. He started to believe that Elara, and perhaps even the woman he rescued, were connected to these ancient beliefs, manifestations of the land itself, or perhaps guardians of a forgotten secret. One evening, while reading through a faded journal kept by one of Elara's ancestors, he found a cryptic entry. The balance must be maintained. The cold demands its warmth, and the warmth its keeper. When the heart of the land falters, she will rise again, a beacon in the darkest night, to reclaim what was lost. The words resonated deeply within him. Reclaim what was lost. What could that mean? Was the fire a sign that the heart of the land was faltering? Was Elara's reappearance a response to that imbalance? He felt a sense of urgency building within him. The mystery was no longer a personal quest, but something larger, something that affected the very soul of the town, perhaps even the natural world around it. He knew he was getting closer, but he also sensed he was treading on sacred ground. Ben sought out the oldest resident of the town, an ancient woman named Agnes who lived in a tiny cottage filled with herbs and stories. Her eyes, though clouded with age, held a sharp, knowing glint. He told her about the fire, about the woman, about the glowing footprints. He expected skepticism, but Agnes just nodded slowly, a faint smile on her lips. "Ah, the warmth weaver," she whispered, her voice like rustling leaves. "She returns when the world forgets its gentle heart, when the cold threatens to consume everything." She explained that the Thorne family were indeed keepers, guardians of a sacred spring on their land, a place of immense spiritual power that flowed with warmth even in the deepest winter. This spring, she said, was a source of healing and balance for the entire region. "And Elara?" Ben asked, leaning forward, his breath held. Agnes sighed, a sound full of ancient sorrow. Elara was the last true keeper. She was meant to protect the spring, to maintain its warmth. But she fell in love, a forbidden love with a man who did not understand her purpose. On that Christmas Eve, when the fire came, it was not just the house burning. It was the heart of the spring, weakened by neglect and a broken promise. Elara, in her grief, chose to become one with the spirit of the spring, to forever guard its warmth, even in her vanished state. She was not taken. She chose her destiny. The house now, the old Thorne place, it sits directly over the weakened spring. The recent fire, it was a cry for help, a final plea to restore the balance. Agnes looked at him, her gaze piercing. You, Ben, you touched her. You were chosen. You are meant to help her, to help the spring. You carry a piece of her warmth now. Ben felt a jolt. The lingering warmth he felt, the images, the sense of connection. It all made sense. He was not just a rescuer. He was a participant in an ancient tale. What do I need to do? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Agnes smiled, a mysterious, knowing smile. You must find the spring, Ben. Find the source of the warmth and help Elara heal it. Only then can the balance be restored, and her spirit find true peace. But be warned, the path will not be easy. The cold does not give up its hold willingly. He left Agnes's cottage feeling a profound sense of purpose, a strange blend of fear and exhilaration. Armed with Agnes's cryptic guidance, Ben returned to the Thorn property, but this time he searched with new eyes. He wasn't looking for clues to a vanished woman. He was looking for a sacred spring. He walked the perimeter of the charred house, then ventured deeper into the surrounding woods, following the faint pull of that familiar warmth he felt within him. The winter landscape was stark, silent, and unforgiving, but he pressed on, his intuition guiding him. He knew the spring had to be close, that the house was directly above it. He felt the cold begin to recede as he walked, replaced by a subtle, growing heat under his boots. It wasn't the heat of the lingering fire, but something older, more primal. He pushed through thickets of snow-laden branches, his breath misting in the frigid air, his heart pounding with anticipation. He noticed that the snow seemed thinner in certain spots, almost translucent, revealing patches of dark, unfrozen earth beneath. He followed these subtle clues, his gaze sweeping the ground. And then he saw it. Tucked away behind a cluster of ancient, snow-draped oaks, was a small, almost hidden hollow. In the center of the hollow, steaming gently into the frosty air, was a pool of crystal-clear water, bubbling up from the earth. The spring. It wasn't large, but its warmth was undeniable, melting the snow for several feet around it, nurturing a small patch of vibrant green moss and even a few delicate winter flowers that seemed to defy the season. It was a tiny oasis of life in the midst of a frozen world. He knelt beside it, his hand hovering over the water, feeling the powerful, ancient warmth emanating from its depths. As he gazed into the steaming water, the surface shimmered, and a faint, ethereal image began to form. It was Elara, clearer and more defined than the fleeting glimpse he'd had before. She appeared as a young woman, her long, dark hair flowing around her, her eyes holding that same ancient light, but now tinged with sorrow. She wasn't solid, but a shimmering, translucent form, reaching out to him with a look of desperate longing. He felt her presence intensely, a wave of profound sadness washing over him, mingled with a faint, hopeful warmth. He knew, with an absolute certainty, that she was trapped, connected to the weakened spring, unable to fully move on until its power was restored. Her disappearance wasn't just a vanishing act. It was a sacrifice, a merging with the very essence of the land. He understood then. The fire had weakened the spring, and Elara, in her grief and devotion, had poured her very essence into it, becoming its guardian. But the spring was still vulnerable, still not fully restored. He felt a powerful urge to help her, to release her, to allow her to find peace. He knew this was why he had been chosen, why he had felt that inexplicable connection. He reached out, his hand dipping into the warm water, and as his fingers touched the ancient spring, a surge of energy, both powerful and gentle, flowed into him. He saw images flash before his eyes. A vibrant, healthy forest, animals drinking from the spring, people finding solace in its warmth. He felt the pain of its weakening, the sorrow of its neglect, and the desperate plea for healing. He knew what he had to do. He spent the rest of the winter at the spring, often alone, sometimes with Agnes, who would bring him warm food and cryptic advice. He cleared away debris, gently reinforced the banks, and most importantly, he simply sat there, meditating, pouring his own energy, his own warmth into the spring. He felt like a conduit, a vessel through which the lost warmth of the world was being channeled. He understood that it wasn't just about physical restoration. It was about spiritual connection, about rekindling the forgotten bond between humanity and the natural world. He spoke to Elara's shimmering image in the water, offering comfort, promising to help. He felt a deep sense of peace settle over him, a quiet understanding that he was exactly where he was meant to be. He was no longer just Ben, the fireman. He was Ben, the keeper, a bridge between worlds. As spring approached, a gentle warmth returned to the land, not just from the sun, but from the invigorated spring itself. The moss around it grew thicker, greener, and the winter flowers bloomed with renewed vibrancy. Ben noticed that Elara's image in the water grew clearer, stronger, her eyes holding less sorrow, more hope. He felt her presence more fully, a quiet companionship that transcended words. He understood that by healing the spring, he was healing a part of her, a part of the land, and perhaps a part of himself. He had found his purpose, a connection to something ancient and profound that went far beyond the everyday heroics of firefighting. He was tending to a deeper fire now, a hearth fire of the soul. One morning, as the first rays of the rising sun touched the spring, Elara's image in the water shimmered intensely, then solidified. She stepped out of the water, no longer a translucent spirit, but a radiant, living woman. She was breathtaking, her eyes holding the light of 1,000 dawns, her face glowing with a profound peace. She smiled at Ben, a smile that radiated warmth and gratitude, a smile that reached deep into his soul. "Thank you, Ben," she whispered, her voice like the gentle rustle of leaves. "You have restored the balance. You have set me free." He felt a tear trace a path down his cheek, not of sadness, but of pure joy. He had done it. He had rescued her, truly rescued her, not just from fire, but from an ancient sorrow. She reached out, gently taking his hands, and a warmth unlike anything he had ever known flowed through him, a warmth that filled him with strength, clarity, and an undeniable sense of belonging. "The spring will thrive again," she said, her gaze sweeping over the revitalized landscape. "The land will remember its heart. And you, Ben, you will continue to be its guardian, its protector. You carry its warmth within you now. Use it wisely, my keeper." He knew then that his life would never be the same. He had found a new path, a new purpose, a connection to something far greater than himself. He was no longer just a man who put out fires. He was a man who brought warmth back to the world. Elara turned, her form becoming luminous, ethereal once more. She slowly melted back into the spring, becoming one with its shimmering water, its warmth, its very essence. She was not gone, not truly. She was everywhere, in the vibrant moss, the budding flowers, the gentle steam rising from the water. Ben felt her presence as a constant, comforting embrace, a quiet understanding that she would always be a part of him, and he a part of her. The spring pulsed with a new, vibrant life, a silent testament to their shared journey. He knew he had a sacred duty now, a lifetime of tending to the warmth of the land, of reminding the world of its gentle heart. Ben returned to his life as a firefighter, but he was changed. He still fought fires, still saved lives, but now there was a deeper purpose in his eyes, a quiet strength that resonated within him. He often visited the spring, tending to it, feeling Elara's gentle presence. He became a quiet advocate for the land, inspiring others to remember their connection to nature, to cherish the warmth within themselves. And sometimes, on the coldest winter nights, when the snow fell soft and deep, people in the town would whisper stories of a fireman who carried the warmth of an ancient spring, and of delicate footprints that glowed faintly in the snow, a reminder of a Christmas Eve when a mystery walked out of a fire and left a trail of embers in the snow. The story of Ben and the Warmth Weaver became a cherished local legend, passed down from generation to generation. A front porch folktale told on long summer evenings and around crackling winter fires. Children would search for the glowing footprints in fresh snow, their imaginations alight with the tale of the fireman who touched magic. The Thorn property, once a place of spooky whispers, became a revered site, known for its miraculous warm spring, a place of healing and quiet contemplation. Ben lived a long and fulfilling life, always a fireman, always a keeper, carrying Elara's warmth in his heart. And even after he was gone, the warmth of the spring continued to flow, a testament to the man who dared to believe in the impossible, and to the mysterious woman who left behind a trail of embers in the snow.